Welcome to Lunch with the Lord. I'm Pastor Mark. We're in Judges chapter 15. We're going to be starting in verse 7 this lesson. But before we begin, Jeremiah 15:16. Thy words were found, and I did eat them, and thy word was unto me the joy and the rejoicing of my heart. Last lesson we finished off where Samson is angry now with the Philistines because they come and they burn his wife and her father in their house because he burns their crops up with the foxes. Now we get into verses 7 and 8. And this is Samson now retaliating against the Philistines for burning his wife and her father in the house. And Samson said unto them, Though you have done this, yet will I be avenged of you, and after that I will cease. And he smote them hip and thigh with a great slaughter. And he went down and dwelt in the top of the rock Etam. Now, Samson is an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth person. What you did to me, I will do worse to you. You know, like all of us, Samson took things personally. How dare you say that or do that to me? And yet, as a Christian, we are to turn the other cheek. Vengeance is God's. I know it's tough, but we have a tendency as a Christian to take things personally. And yet, Jesus said, if they persecute you, they persecute me. And remember, it's not, if you're a testimony for the Lord, it's not you they hate. It's the Lord in you that they hate. They don't want who resides within you. And they're fighting against the Lord. They're not fighting against, like Jesus said to Paul, it's hard for you to kick against the pricks. Who are you? You're persecuting me. You're not persecuting these disciples. It's me, you're the one that you're hurting. But Samson here took things personally, and I think as Christians, we have a tendency to want to take things personally and fight back. But God says, vengeance is mine. Although we know this, yet at the time that we are offended, our sinful self-pride wants to lash back by defending ourselves and also teaching them a lesson. Your sinful nature will tell you that you are weak and wimpy if you don't do anything, if you don't fight back. Yet, if we put it into the hands of God, then that's really the best thing that we can do. Best thing to do is take our hands off of it and to let God deal with these people. Remember Abimelech killing his 70 stepbrothers and how Jotham felt. Jotham pronounces a curse on Abimelech and on the people of Shechem and Millo. And he basically put it into God's hand. Jotham didn't do anything. He just went on the top of Mount Gerizim and spoke out this curse, and then he leaves. It wasn't until 3 years later that God fulfilled Jotham's curse upon their heads, upon Abimelech's head and the men of Shechem and Millo. 3 years later. We want retribution now, but we must let God be our avenger. I'm sure when Jotham spoke that curse on Mount Gerizim, he was probably thinking, God's going to do this thing now. No, it was 3 years later. We have to let God do it in his timing. In verse 8, the expression hip and thigh is just an expression that intensifies his killing of these Philistines. At this time, God does not call Samson to gather an army and to fight against the Philistines like he did with Gideon or Jephthah. As I said a number of lessons ago, Samson worked alone. It seems that this was God's design of how he wanted to use Samson. Samson was enough of a threat to keep the Philistines at bay and question whether they should oppress Israel at times or not. So just Samson himself, he was enough to make the Philistines consider, do we want to raid the Israelites this coming season or not? Now, Samson now goes to a place called Etam. There are several locations that have this name in Israel, but they are all too far away from where Samson is. There must have been another location with the same name near Timnath or Zorah, where he could get a good view of what the Philistines would do next. The Bible says he dwelt in Etham, meaning that he spent time up there. There must have been a cave or some kind of shelter for him to live in. Now, let's read verses 9 through 13. And it says, Then the Philistines went up and pitched in Judah, and they spread themselves in Lehi. And the men of Judah said, Why are you come against us? And they said, To bind Samson are we come up, to do to him as he's did to us. Then 3,000 men of Judah went to the top of the rock Etam. And they said to Samson, Do you know that the Philistines are rulers over us? What is this that you have done unto us? And he said unto them, As they did to me, so have I done to them. And they said unto him, We are come down to bind you, that we may deliver you to the hands of the Philistines. And Samson said unto them, Swear unto me, that you will not fall upon me yourselves. And they spake unto him, saying, No, but we will bind you fast, and deliver you into the hands, into their hand. But surely we will not kill you. And they bound him with 2 new cords, and brought him up from the rock Etam. Now, a great number of the Philistines enter into the land of Judah with information that Samson is somewhere in Judah's territory. The people of Judah decide to hand Samson over to the Philistines. They saw Samson more as making trouble for them than actually being a deliverer. The people of Judah became content with being oppressed, and they didn't want Samson making things worse. So here, what the people of Israel should have done was rally behind Samson, but they didn't. Neither did Judah think to team up with Samson to fight, nor did Samson challenge them to trust God and fight. Remember, the Israelites were probably not allowed to have any weapons, but neither did Gideon and the 300 men that were with him when they went against the 135,000 Midianites. So, look, with God all things are possible. They should have rallied behind Samson and said, Look, Samson, we know what you can do. We've heard of you. Let's go and get him. We don't have any weapons, but we know what God did with Gideon, so let's go. Rather than fight, they would give Samson into their hands. And you know what the Philistines would do when they got Samson. The Christian church worldwide is in a sad state when many of its leaders do not try to rally the troops to pray and to preach, but instead they give in to the bondage of this world. And the people in the churches are more about what the enemy thinks than what God has said. They are more afraid of the enemy than they are of God. In verse 11, the people of Judah ask Samson two questions that they have totally twisted the truth. These two questions show that the people of Judah, they've twisted the truth of what has happened. Number one, do you not know that the Philistines rule over us? Well, of course Samson knows that. But it is Israel's own fault because of worshiping idols. God would not have given them into the hands of their enemies if they hadn't first given themselves into the hands of their idols that they worship. So yeah, does Samson know that the Philistines rule over them? Of course he knows, but it's their own fault. And question number 2, what is this that you have done unto us? Samson didn't do anything to them. What he did was done against the Philistines. The people are blind to the fact that God was using Samson to begin their deliverance from the Philistines. It wasn't Samson, but it was God. And what he did wasn't to bring them into more bondage, but to set them free. So here they ask two questions, but they've got it all twisted backwards. They're heading in the wrong direction. But this is what the children of Israel did with Moses in Numbers chapter 11, verses 4 through 6. They were complaining the whole way through the wilderness, blaming God and blaming Moses for all their problems, while the whole time God was bringing them into the land that flowed with milk and honey. It was always complaining. And the same thing's happening with Samson here. The men of Judah betray Samson into the hands of the Philistines. But they would also be an accessory to murder, because they had to know that the Philistines were going to torment and abuse Samson and then basically kill him. The men of Judah must have known by now that what Samson's abilities were, and they didn't even offer to help Samson defeat the Philistines in some way. Again, they must have known, they must have had reports of what Samson's done with the foxes and killing the Philistines. They must have known his ability, but they never bothered to at least make an effort to help Samson to release them from this oppression with the Philistines. We're going to continue on in verse 14 next lesson, but until then, walk with the Lord. I know he walks with you.